to the channel. Bit of an apology first. Not really done much uploading since doing the Datsun walk around. Life's got in the way and work's been mental busy for me this past month or so. So hopefully it's going to quiet down a bit and I get a bit more time to start doing any work on the cars. Done a few bits of here and there on the Jazz, but yeah, just life in general has just got busy. Today, what I'm going to do is talk about the Jazz and what we did for the K-swap. I've had quite a few messages on the Instagram page and Facebook regarding it. A couple of comments here and there on these YouTube videos, but yeah, people keep asking me if I've got sort of like a list of stuff that I've done, because most of the information is quite commonly done in the States, and most of them, they've got some crazy like models of Honda and stuff saying, oh yeah, use these cables from this, use this mount from this, whatever, and we don't have them in the UK. So I'm going to go through what I did with my little I made a little list here to talk about stuff, and yeah, hopefully give you guys a bit of information of what I've researched anyway, and obviously what I've done. Right, from the top then, big one, engine K20Z4. This one's from the FN2. I got this from On a Mission, who was a famous, well not famous, but a well-known breaker on Facebook. Breaks lots of Hondas. So I got that from him. I got literally a full engine minus the gearbox. So loom, the block, obviously the inlet manifold. It came with the exhaust manifold on, but didn't use that because I've got a different manifold now. Drive-by-wire pedal, ECU. We've got an EP3 intake air temp sensor. He gave me that with the kit, or with the swap. Yeah, so no mounts, no nothing like that. You can opt for the K20A2 from the EP3, but I wanted to keep the drive-by-wire set up, and yeah, I just got a good deal on it at the time, so I just went straight for this. I think I paid all in for the engine and everything else. I think it was about just over £1,000, I think, for the engine and everything else. Not bad at all, really. And the EP3 ones are commanding like, what, 1,300–1,400 quid, whatever, on their own without a gearbox. Yeah, so K20Z4 from an FN2. So engine mounts, I've got Hasport billet mounts. I think the code is GDK20 from their website. I got them from Tegua, messaged Johnny, just told him I was looking for some, and he said, yeah, you can get hold of some, so I got them. Mine took 4 weeks to come. For some reason, other people's are taking 6 months, so I'm not sure whether you were getting from them direct, obviously then you got to pay import charges and whatever, or just getting them from Tegua. Don't know, I think I just got lucky. I've got that coupled with OEM mounts from the Jazz, but I've done some homemade polybushing with them, and to be honest, not the best. Engine's still moving around a lot, so I'm going to end up going with Cheddas, CHEDDAS. They're a company from the States. I've spoken to them, and I'm going to end up going with them because they make a full billet and poly mount or polybush kit for this car, albeit a fit in the US, but it's exactly the same mounts. We've double checked. So going to get some of those while Steve's away on holiday, and hopefully he brings them back with him. I say holiday because he's not at work. Yeah, so I managed to get those. They go in sound. Gearbox, I've used EP3. that bolted in straight, no dramas, everything bolts up perfectly. You can use the FN2 one because obviously it's an engine, same thing. Mounts are the same, I believe. You may need to modify the mount a little bit on the FN2 gearbox. The difference comes with the wiring, because you've got a speed sensor that's different, and then the gear cables will be different, and shifter mechanism, because the FN2 one is back to front to the EP3. But we'll talk about that later when I tell you what gear cables and stuff I've used. Drive shafts. Right, I've used EP3 OEM drive shafts with a Tegua outer CV. It's a 32mm from a B series, so I'm guessing that's the Civics, the EGs and EK and EK9 maybe. But it's 32mm anyway. Find it easily on Tegua's website. Type in 32mm outer CV. Easy, about 60 quid. That slots straight into the Jazz hubs, no problem. You just got to put them on the end of the EP3 drive shafts. Done. With that, you need to use a EP3 intermediate shaft. Now, there's different ones from different K series, different engine, different cars. The one I've got is stamped, or I've used is stamped with 6MN, 6 Mike November. That's what it's stamped with. That all goes in, bolts up straight away, even to the FN2 engine from an EP3. Good. Right, so gear cables. In mine, I've used DC5 shifter box. Say shifter box, where the bit that attaches your gear stick onto, where it bolts into the car. Shifter box, DC5. For cables, because I'm running the EP3 gearbox, I've also used the DC5 shifter cables, OEM. No cheap K-Tune swap copies, not OEM. Go in perfectly, no problems, doesn't touch the manifold, job done. If you're running an FN2 gearbox, then you need to use the CRZ shifter box. That bolts straight into the Jazz, no modifications, no nothing. And CRZ gear cables work perfect, because as I said in the beginning, the shifter mechanisms back to front. If you look on YouTube for One Blue Ghost, Nick, he's got a green Jazz that he's done exactly the same, where he used the EP3 box, but then he put the CRZ shifter in, and when he went into third, he was going into fourth. First was fifth, I believe. Completely back to front anyway. Wasn't right, but you'll see that on his channel. Yeah, so shout to Nick for finding the little hack for that. Exhaust, I've used the Tegua FN2 exhaust manifold, bolt straight on. What you do have to do it though is you sort of have to position the manifold into the car so it sits above the anti-roll bar. Position it in, drop the engine in, then bolt the manifold to the back of the block whilst it's there in position. If you want to change the manifold, you either got to drop the steering rack, and then you can do it that way. But because we were lazy and we were doing it here in a weekend, we just slotted it in sound. It's currently plumbed up to the OEM Honda exhaust, which is choking it a lot. But I've ordered the parts, and in another video I'm going to make, we're going down to my mate's fabrication shop whilst he's away, and he's going to fabricate a 3-inch exhaust for this, and then hopefully we can get it on the dyno, see what difference it makes. Big one, wiring. Now, I reached out to Paul at Racing Circuits and told him what I wanted to do. I got recommended in by a friend who was having his EP3 race car, all done, rewired, and spoke to Paul, told him what I want to do, and he says, yeah, no problem, we can go through that. So Paul's designed and made a plug and play loom, either for EP3 engine, the K20A2, or the Z4, that plugs straight into the Honda Jazz, and again, either with an EP3 gearbox or with an FN2 gearbox. It's a speed sensor that's different, so to get around that, because I'm using the EP3 one and I'm using not an EP3 ECU, the speed signal needed to be converted, so he's used a Dakota Digital. I'll make a video on that because it took some setting up to convert the EP3 speed signal to allow the ECU to recognize it, and for the car to recognize it, because I had no speed on the car either. So that's sorted. ECU, I've gone with an FN2 stock ECU that's been reflashed with ECU Tech. Now that was from a guy called Paul again from TPW Engineering, and I bought that, and I also bought a little OBD dongle thing that allows it to connect to my phone, so you've got like fast map switching and pops and bangs if you're that way inclined. But yeah, it allows you to do that, and you know, like valet mode, and but then for me it was good because I can see coolant temps and whatever using a tablet or whatever you've got the app installed on, just Bluetooth connected. So that was that. Engine done, I think, other than I've used, when I had the engine out, or when I got the engine, I did a full refresh on it, so new timing chain, new tensioner, new everything, pretty much every single seal you could think of that I could get to replaced, bearings replaced, whatever I could get hold of I got. Most of my parts came from Jap service parts because they did me sort of a big deal because I bought quite a lot. Clutch I used was a competition OEM spec clutch, seems to be fine, no issues with it, bolt straight in, no noise, no nothing, great. There's also an X-Eddy one, I believe that's the same as OEM, just without the sticker on or whatever, the painted Honda bit, but yeah, same, works good. Next on the list I've got cooling. So I opted for a full-size Jazz radiator from a company called Nissan's. They do a half-size and a full-sized. I went with the full-size, obviously the K20 radiator is designed for a 1.4, so they get as big as possible. That allowed me to use the OEM Jazz radiator fan. Got rid of the aircon one, not using aircon, so that's gone. That means that everything was plug and play. Great, ECU controls the fan, no problem, all good. Hoses, so the hoses top and bottom are a mixture of FN2 and Jazz. FN2's a 32mm, Jazz is a 28, so I had to get some adapters from eBay, easy enough to find. That was easy enough. The bottom hose was a bit of an issue because of the position of the little thermostat housing off the FN2. So what I did was I bought a billet thermostat housing, one of those Chinese ones from eBay, that allowed me to swivel it, turn it, whatever. You can get them from K-tuned, I guess they're exactly the same, just got K-tuned laser etched into them, and that allowed me to position where I wanted it anyway. And yeah, again, FN2 bottom and Jazz bottom cobbled together with an adapter, worked sound. Yeah, everything as it should, no problems there, temps are all good. Before I forget, cooling, another thing, the hoses that go from the heater matrix to the ports here for the heating inside the car. They're different sizes from the Jazz to the engine again, but I managed to work out that they sort of got going an S shape, and one's a big L shape, I think, with a little, or a big Z shape, whatever. I'm 99.9% sure, I'll double check and I'll put it in the description or I'll edit this video. They were from the 2.2 diesel Civic, same version, same shape as the FN2, but I believe they went in, I just chopped them down a little bit, I think, at either end, and it all worked. Unless, I've not looked anyway, but I know for a fact they fitted fine and they work fine because I've got heat. I do, however, have a bit of a drip on the exhaust from where one of the heater matrix hoses was crushed, the metal ones that come out of the bulkhead. So I've got to repair that. We've got to do some DIY ghetto pipe forming or whatever, but I'll work that out. Power cables. I've got a mixture of Jazz and FN2 because the engine came with the loom and everything still attached. Yeah, so I've adapted the power cables. Everything seemed to reach, didn't have to cut anything or re-terminate anything. It just all seemed to work well and tucked well, so it was okay. So it's sort of out of the way. Clutch cable, I used an EP3 braided clutch cable from HEL that runs around the edge of the bay down and then onto the EP3. That was another thing I brought new. EP3 slave cylinder. It bolts from straight into the Jazz Jazz master cylinder down to the EP3 slave. No problem, everything works, clearance is good. To be fair, you could probably do a bit of a shorter one. There is a left-hand drive one on Tegua. You choose left or right, and I had right-hand drive. But obviously, with it being in a Jazz, you may be able to get away with it a bit smaller. But with the right-hand drive one, sorry, it clips into all the little things up inside the engine bay and routes nicely. So I see no need to change it really. It works. One thing I did get rid of, bonnet catch. I had to cut that away for clearance. It's on this slam panel. Bonnet catch is gone, so I've installed some bonnet pins into the bonnet, and that's that really. I think everything else just literally bolts in. It looks OEM. It's really weird how it all goes together, and it's just a mishmash of Honda parts really. If you have any questions or queries, drop them below in the comments and I will get back to you and try and answer them as much as possible. But yeah, anyone looking to go down the route of a K-swap Jazz, I definitely recommend doing it this way. Very simple, very easy, doesn't really take much mechanical knowledge or skill. Just need someone who can weld, so luckily I've got Steve, top welder, can do everything. So hats off to him for helping. But yeah, everything's pretty much bolt in, everything's plug and play, or it's been made to as much as possible. A few wires here and there that need repinning and stuff, but very easy. But yeah, that's it. So I will catch you on the next one where I will take us out for a drive in it and hopefully show you what it's like without it breaking. Yeah, anyway, thank you very much. See you on the next one. Peace.